Hello, everyone, and inside today's latest Locked On Canadiens, it's all about the draft lottery and the NHL Draft wish list.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Locked On Canadiens. We are your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week on Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your daily podcast, or on YouTube.com. Just search Locked On Canadiens, or if you're looking for anyone else across the NFL, NBA, MLB, etc., they have something for you there. Just type it in YouTube and you will find them. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go, and I have to admit, I've got a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go. The mobile hit is a classic twist on Monopoly, so join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. And you may be wondering, who is this guy talking to me if you're new here? And if you're new here, hi, welcome. I am one of the hosts of Locked On Canadiens. I am Scott Matla, at Scott Matla on the app, formerly known as Twitter. And I am your host for today's show. My co-host, the actor Stick Laura Saba, is unavailable for today's episode, just due to a timing thing. So you have me today. Thank you for everyone who tuned in to our special Friday mailbag, where we talked with Maud about the rebuilds of the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens and all the things that entailed. It was a fantastic listen while I was out of town. But in today's show, you're with me, which means we are going back to the NHL draft, at least a little bit. I want to talk about the draft lottery. What happens if they win? Who is on my draft wish list? What is my draft wish list in terms of needs and position and everything else? And then we're going to talk about just how cooked the Maple Leafs might be, because Saturday night's game against the Boston Bruins, and you'll be hearing this before a pivotal Game 5. There's a lot to cover with that, and I'm going to engage in some Schadenfreude and just really enjoy the chaos that is surrounding that. But let's jump right into things. You may be asking, well, what happens if the Montreal Canadiens win the draft lottery? Well, it's very simple. If they win the draft lottery, and let's say, all intents and purposes, they win the first overall pick, they have an 8.5% chance of that. Fifth best. Columbus, Anaheim, Chicago, and San Jose are ahead of them. San Jose at 25.5%, and then it drops down deeply. Montreal at 8.5% chance of having the first overall pick in this draft. And what does that entail? Well, they get to draft Macklin Celebrini. That's phenomenal. We love to see that. We would love to see that. Immediately changes the course. And we're going to talk about what that means for the rebuild here. But I'm just kind of looking at this and that. What does it mean for everything else? It means they can only drop the Sharks down so far. And, well, I feel bad for our friend JD Young over at Locked On Sharks. For the Montreal Canadiens, potentially the best ideal would be obviously the best outcome in this is winning the first overall pick. Duh. It's a long shot. Again, 8.5% chance is not a huge opportunity. You are threading the needle. You're doing insanely rare thing to make this happen for you. If that were to happen, the Montreal Canadiens immediately jump a step ahead in their NHL rebuild here. Macklin Celebrini is a phenomenal player. 64 points in 38 games at the University of Boston, or Boston University. I don't want to get yelled at for that. Playing on a team with, Lane Hutson and Luke Tuck. And while Lane Hutson is on another level on his own, Macklin Celebrini was so far and away the best offensive player on that team that it jumps the Canadiens' rebuild up here. You're taking at least another year off of that. You win this lottery, and you're set up very well down the middle. You're going to come in and you're going to have Nick Suzuki. You're going to have Kirby Dach. You're going to have Macklin Celebrini. Then you have Jake Evans and whomever as your fourth line center. And Celebrini can eventually move up. Maybe he's your second line center, depending on how he and Kirby Dach's recovery goes in this. I cannot understate just how important it would be for that. They can't control their destiny with this. It is out of their hands. The draft lottery is on May 7th. I will be doing my best to watch the results while I am in Mexico. I will either be drinking tequila for a good reason or ordering something strong for a bad reason. The Canadiens seem to be pretty well locked into a top 5 pick here. 24.5% of drafting 5th for some reason, but they have no chance at moving up to 4th. Slim 0.3% chance to move up to 3rd, 8.6 to move up to 2nd, 8.5 to move up to 1st overall. But they do have a chance that they could decline backwards 1 or 2 spots as well. No matter what, it is likely they're picking 5th or 6th in this draft. But just the idea of what happens if this team wins. Again, you are getting Macklin Celebrini, who immediately becomes the top prospect in your system over anybody else. And that includes Lane Hudson. That includes a really strong season from Logan Mailloux. That includes David Reinbacher. That includes, I don't consider Uri Slafkovsky a prospect anymore because he's an established NHL player, but Macklin Celebrini becomes the focal point of your organization. He is your guy. And now the thing here is, his quote from earlier this week is that he talked about a lot of unfinished business at BU this upcoming year or last year. They wanted a national title. They didn't get that. And they were a very good team, and some very good pieces moved off that team. Boston University next year will get Cole Yzerman. And you're wondering, is Macklin Celebrini coming back? I'm trying to take a look here and seeing who's going to be on BU's roster next year. And as of right now, let's take a look here. Select season, 24-25 season. On that team, right now it does not list Macklin Celebrini because it is up in the air. Cole Hudson is joining that team. I believe Cole Yzerman is joining this team as well. A guy like Michael Lestarz is joining this team. There's going to be some guys who roll over and those who do not. They lost a lot of talent in this group here that went to the NHL level, graduated up, and everything else. They are going to be looking, if Celebrini comes back, it's going to be him and Cole Yzerman having to lead the way on this team. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing because, one, you're going to get to see, can he be that leader? Can he take things over on his own? We know that he could with a very good team around him. There is every chance that he could do that there. I think if the Canadiens pick him, he potentially would not be going back to college. I think the Canadiens have an NHL-ready spot for him right now. And they can go, we can put you in our starting lineup immediately out of the gate here. You are going to get to play as much as you want. Where you play in the lineup is all up to how do you perform in the preseason and in training camp and everything else here. Whereas with San Jose going through a retooling of other things here, you might go, I'm going to wait a year and see where they're at. If it's Chicago, for God forbid, whatever reason, he might say, yes, I can play, second fiddle to Connor Bedard. Not the worst thing in the world, but might want to wait a year until they have more actual depth around them. I could see him immediately going to Columbus or Anaheim and suiting up and playing for them immediately. But I wonder if he takes his time depending on what team picks him. But if it's Montreal picking him, and I do not have an inside source on this, I am not a hockey insider with 4 R's on Twitter telling you things. I just think that he could immediately come in, be an impact player on day one. Not that he wouldn't be for any of these other teams. It changes the course of the Montreal Canadiens rebuild. They are not waiting then for maybe another center. You can give Owen Beck time to develop then in the AHL and move him into this lineup. You can find out, is Kirby Dach our center or is he going to be a better winger there? Not a bad thing. It gives you so much potential opportunity. It would be a gold mine for Kent Hughes to have this happen for him, in that I'm going to get this pick here. And it's not that there aren't other picks in that top 5 range there in the mock draft that I'm looking at on Tankathon, and we will dive into that a little bit later on in our next segment. But I just look at this, and he's so far and away the consensus pick that there's only maybe one other person in this first round that I think would instantly be able to come in and potentially change the course of the Canadiens' fortunes. That's Ivan Demidov, who's dominating the MHL in Russia. But there's some time frame stuff with that. Maybe Caden Lindstrom, but we'll talk about that in the next one. Macklin Celebrini, if the Canadiens were to win the draft lottery and win the first overall pick somehow, and not saying it's unlikely to happen, this team immediately goes from they might make the playoffs to I think they are very likely potentially a playoff team next year. We're going to talk about what's going on in Toronto. We're going to talk about what's going on in Tampa a little bit here, in that what can happen for the Canadiens with that. And obviously there's a whole offseason of stuff. The Canadiens have to be smart with their development and new contracts and other things too, depending on how prospects come in. But I can't help but look at that. Out of everything here, the biggest thing is that if they win this draft lottery, I think you are out of a rebuild mode and you're into a mode where you are trying to win and contend again. Almost immediately, that switch would flip if that were the case. Whereas if they draft one of these other guys, maybe it's another year, which is fine. Make that step forward, but getting a first overall pick, your mindset then switches. Okay, we've seen Kent and Jeff Gordon do a really good job at getting this team through a rough patch, retooling it, rebuilding the prospect pool, and doing a lot for development on the side. Can you now build a team that is meant to win? Can Martin St. Louis go get this team over that hump and be a team that needs to win? There's a lot of questions about that. That's the biggest thing facing this team. And if they get Macklin Celebrini, we're going to find out a lot about the status of the front office and the coaching staff here, if they can get that done. Speaking of the NHL draft, want to take a moment. We're going to go over what my wish list is in terms of players, in terms of just what do I think the Montreal Canadiens need, and that's all coming up next. But first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It is playoff time in the NBA and the NHL, and it is always exciting. We love good overtime. We love heated rivalries. We love people being haters on Twitter, and FanDuel is in full swing at letting you place your bet on every single game. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. Is Toronto going to get themselves out of the hole? Probably not. Is Edmonton going to continue to terrorize LA? Very likely. You can bet on everything, scoreline, over, under, parlays, everything, and get paid out immediately. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Speaking of all these sporting events in full swing and it's concert season, it is so hard and annoying to try and find tickets that don't hit you with hidden fees or, whoa, I thought my seat looked like this. I just went through this. I was buying tickets for a wrestling show. AEW is coming to Buffalo, and I love that. I went through Game Time, and I got to be honest, it was so much easier than any other experience I've ever had. There are no hidden fees. There are no secrets, everything in there. The price you see is the price that you are paying. And they offer you last minute deals, saving up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy shows, in the theater, everything. As you get closer to the start of your event, ticket prices drop on Game Time, so you no longer have to worry about being frozen out of an event you couldn't wait to go see. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we're going to go from what if the Canadiens win the draft lottery to, well, what do we do? What do we need? What does this team need? What is this team screaming out for? And I have the Habs Eyes on the Prize depth chart here behind me. So if you see me kind of looking off screen, for those of you watching on youtube.com, thank you for subscribing. Tell all your friends, smash that like button. This team has a healthy amount of wingers, but I am looking at it right now and I'm going, do we though? Let's break it down here. Cole Caulfield, Uri Slafkovsky, great. Top line winger. Raphael Harvey-Pinard on the left, Brendan Gallagher on the right. We're already dropping down here. Pizzetta, Newhook played in the middle, and then Armia. You could put Newhook on the wing when Kirby Dach comes back. Josh Anderson, Jesse Olonen, Tanner Pearson's UFA, doesn't matter. And in the AHL, you have Joshua Waugh, great. Jacob Perreault. Leah Sanderson's likely leaving. Sean Farrell, Emil Heineman, Luke Tuck are guys who can also play on that wing there. And then in the ECHL, Yakov Novak, Ty Smolanek. In the prospect pool proper, Cedric Guindon, Rem Pitlick, Sam Harris, Alexander Gordine. This team's screaming out for wing depth, across the board. I also think center depth is also something they could use because I'm looking at the AHL right now. There are what I would consider 3, maybe 4 not high-end prospects, but center prospect that can play in the middle. And that's Xavier Simino, who played a lot on the wing, mostly this season. Florian Jekai, who was not a high-ceiling player. Riley Kidney, who had a very rough first AHL season. And Jared Davidson, who was kind of coming into his own, but was playing a lot on the wing. In the prospect pool itself, Owen Beck, Philip Machar, Oliver Kapanen, Philip Eriksson, Vincenz Roars, Blake Biondi, Jack Smith. The first 4 names there are interesting. Vincenz Roars is kind of on that borderline, and Philip Eriksson, your mileage may very, very strong season in Hockey Allsvenskan there as well. But Beck and Machar, and I see Machar potentially being a winger at that next level there. So if I am looking at this right now, and I am looking at, the draft board, and I'm going to, head to Elite Prospects because I prefer to use their rankings on there because they are always a great friend to us. If I am looking at where is it? There it is. The Elite Prospects top 32 draft rankings. If I am looking at this and I'm looking at their draft board, my biggest wish list for this, assuming the Canadiens are not winning the draft lottery itself proper, is quickly becoming, and hasn't really quickly been becoming, I think I've kind of learned to be sold on this a little bit, is Caden Lindstrom. I think a guy who can play across the entire forward core there, can play as a center, can play as a winger. He's big. He's nasty. He scores a lot. 46 points in 32 games, 66 penalty minutes. He's a physical guy. He loves to get involved. Injuries are a slight concern, mind you. That's always a case that you have with things like this. And if not him, I think I'm slowly talking myself into Tijagin being the guy that I'm not opposed to it. Is it maybe a little reach? Potentially. Do I also think that scoring 47 goals in 64 games is really, really good? I absolutely do. One of the only people in this draft class who has outscored him in terms of total goals is Cole Yzerman. And I think that's honestly that's an impressive feat. In front of him, Berkeley Catton, 54 points, 62 assists in Spokane. Cole Yzerman, then Tijagin. I am becoming enamored with that pick, that if they're not going to get Lindstrom, I'm becoming really okay with Iginla being the pick. I don't, for some reason, there's no buzz about Berkeley Catton amongst anyone except for Habs fans in general. And that it's kind of weird to me. And then I also look at, and this is me putting my Kent Hughes cap on, someone like Consta Hellenius. Maybe not the sexiest pick. And that is where I kind of differ from their draft philosophy is I want to go out with a bang. I want you to swing for the fence. You did it with Juraj Slafkovsky here, and it's proving to be pretty damn good. I don't want to play it safe so much with this. This is your chance that if you were picking in the top 5 and you got another pick later in the first round, swing and swing hard. I'm looking at, the depth chart. There's a lot of defensemen. They probably need some help on the right side. David Savard's in the last year of his contract. Jonathan Kovacevic in the last year of his contract. Chris Wyden is UFA. Brady Keeper is gone. Justin Barron looks like a potential third pairing guy. Logan Mailloux is still developing, unsure. David Reinbacher, unsure of where his ceiling is, but has played very well in the AHL. Beyond that, Miguel Torini in the ECHL, Bogdan Konyushkov, Dmitry Kostenko, Daniil Sobolev. Konyushkov is at least another 2 years off due to his contract in the KHL. So if they're going to go defense, what do? There's a lot of good defensemen in this draft. You have Artem Levshunev, you have Zane Pareka, you have Sam Dickinson, Anton Silyev, Zeev Buyam. Carter Yakemchuk is someone that I've seen climbing up boards. I'm kind of finding myself thinking they're going to pick Zeev Buyam regardless anyways, just because that I don't know what it is that I look at his production. I look at where he is playing. I look at the teams that he played on. I go, you have Kent Hughes written all over you. If they're going to pick a defender, I would prefer that they would go that route. If he lasts that long, Elite Prospects has him in the top 10 there. There's going to be some kind of defender available when the Canadiens pick in the top 5 there. And Booyam is ranked 9, 10, 13, 4, 5, 10, 15, 11, 8, 10, 4 amongst North American skaters, 6, 20, 11, 5, 5, 16, 5. He's a good player for a reason. And if we're just talking, wish list stuff, if you're going to go bold and you want a guy, they're crying out for a goal scorer in this group. Yes, Cole Caulfield's great and Slavkovsky's great, and they have all these defensemen, and they can win by death by 1,000 paper cuts. But I want that guy that when you put him on the ice is undeniably the most dangerous man with the puck. And why not go for Cole part 2? And yes, I mean Cole Yzerman here. He's heading to Boston. 2 years he's heading to Boston, 25, 26. So Celebrini won't be there. My apologies for the last segment there. But right now, he is closing in on Cole Caulfield's USNT DP scoring record, which is just an incredible feat because people probably didn't know that, oh, wow, he can do that. I've seen a lot of people kind of thinking, maybe he needs some work here, some work here. I think for me that if they're going to swing on a winger and Caden Lindstrom's not there, or if they don't want to go safe with a Constantinius, go for Cole Yzerman. There's a lot of other wingers in this group. If Ivan Demidov, assuming he is also gone, Demidov would be my preferred pick above Yzerman. But I look at some of these other names here. Andrew Basha, Trevor Connolly, a lot of red flags with that, though, for stuff that he did playing on previous teams there. That's a problem. Liam Greentree. If you're going to go for a winger, there's a lot of good scoring guys in there. But Yzerman is your biggest boom or bust. And if you're going to take a swing, go for it and mean it. Also, I think I would love it if at some point, and maybe this is just the NFL draft part of me speaking, because this past week we saw guys like Terrell Owens' son get or undrafted free agent contracts in the NHL and the NFL. Jeremiah Trotter's son was picked in Jerry Rice's son was drafted. That I'm like, I want them to make a Nepo baby pick. I want them to pick Saku Koivu's son in this draft. If they have the opportunity to do so, I absolutely want them to pick Atos Koivu at some point in this draft. Is he any good? I couldn't tell you. I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and watch a whole bunch of under 20 Finnish games. He's 6'1", 165 pounds. He's not a big dude. Playing for TPS in the under 18, under 20 league. He had 22 points in 20 games in the under 18 team this year, 31 and 28 for the under 20 team. No points in 4 games with the big club in Liga. 7 points in 10 games in the under 20 playoffs. He's ranked 60th by Bob McKenzie, 80th by McKean's, 94th by FC Hockey, 27th by NHL Central Scouting EU Skaters. Look, I'm not usually hey, make this pick for the fans, but hey, make this pick for the fans. And I think that Kent Hughes will have all the runway he ever needs to just kind of do whatever. And maybe I'm just being a little bit egregious in that it's, why would they do that? Do they really need, a small center who's 6'1", doesn't weigh a ton, he's 17 years old, it's going to be wild? And my answer is, I don't care. It's Saku Koivu's kid, and I think that rules. So what's on your draft wish list? If you were the Canadiens, you were picking at 5, and assuming Celebrini and Demidov are gone, who are you picking at 5th overall? Tweet us at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. And now we're going to end the show with my favorite thing. We're going to hate on the Toronto Maple Leafs a little bit, and that's all coming up next. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is so much more good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes that you unlock, and there's so much more to get. You can get unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton including their own unique minigames like digging for treasure or a robotic pachinko machine. There's always something new for timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it free on Google Play or in the App Store. And remember, folks, it's game on. All right, we're back. And we're going to do my favorite thing in the world. We are going to talk smack about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And do you know why? Because I am, of course, above anything else, a dedicated hater. And I right now want to take a look at what this series looks like for Toronto. They are down 3-1 in a series where statistically they have been the better team. Which, okay, more high danger chances, which in some of those, the Bruins were blowing them out 5-1, overtime win, but then they lose 4-2, lose 3-1. This is a team that is sitting on the precipice of just complete and utter collapse. I look at the game last night. They went down 2-0, and I think it was 3-0, and everything felt terrible. Austin Matthews had to leave the game because he's dealing with some illness that Sheldon Keefe said gets worse as he plays, that it's having this lingering impact. And all I can think is, sounds like COVID. I can't say that it's that because I don't know that that is true for a fact of the matter. But boy, it's not good when you already lose that. You have William Nylander playing through what has been described as a migraine issue. You have John Tavares, who is, he's there. Just this whole team, I look at this and I go, everything Brad Treliving did has pretty much blown up in his face with this. Defense, we're going to get tougher. You got older and worse. TJ Brody cooked. Not in a good way. Morgan Riley's been a non-factor in this series. Timothy Liljegren has been getting beat up, not 100%. You trade away Rasmus Sandin, you could probably use him in this. Joel Edmondson, yeah, he's mean and nasty. He's not very good at staying in position and defending the goal. That's a problem. You got tougher in your bottom four or in your bottom six there. Ryan Reeves had an expected goal percentage last night of 1.89. And I get it. He's not there to generate offense. But when you're such a negative draw on your own team, why are you in this lineup? Why are guys, like Connor Dewar not playing? Why is, I'm looking at the ice time right here now. Nick Robertson barely played a minute more than Ryan Reeves last night at 5-on-5. And my question is, why? If you're deciding between whether or not you should be putting Nick Robertson, who I still don't think is all that great, on the ice, or Ryan Reeves, and you opt for Ryan Reeves, you as a coaches have failed completely at setting your lineup. I watched Toronto get back into this. It was a 3-1 game. They have every chance to still claw their way back into this game, somehow improbably. They were swarming. They had good chances. Jeremy Swayman was incredible. And then with 3.5 minutes left, there's the fourth line and the third pair on the ice. And all I can think to myself is, you should fire Sheldon Keefe before the game is over. How? Why? Reeves was responsible for the first goal against in this game. That's a problem. And this team comes unglued when things start going against them. Max Domi, really bad penalty, goal against. End of the period, David Pastrnak, lack of discipline, opens up that space, scores. So many little things, and then you just feel the vibes around this team. Matthews is sitting on the bench. He's angry. Marner's 1,000 yards staring, throwing this little temper tantrum with his gloves. Mitch, you're part of the problem, by the way. And then you have William Nylander looking at him and going, stop bleeping crying. This isn't juniors. And there's only, where he was sitting on the bench, and based on the reaction, he's definitely talking in the direction of Mitch Marner there. Matthews didn't play junior hockey, and I don't think he's talking to Tyler Bertuzzi, who didn't seem to be reacting to anything. He's yelling directly at the dude sitting next to him, who's getting paid, do the math here real quick, 7 figures a year to not show up in the playoffs. Yeah, Marner scored a goal late in the game there. It was a really nice, sick goal. When are you going to show up the rest of the time? Then Mitch is talking about, we're not fighting because we hate each other. We're trying to get on the same page. Mitch, you are reading a coloring book while everyone else is reading War and Peace right now. And that's a problem. Matthews is showing up, showing out, playing sick. William Nylander is playing through migraines and looks great. Every single time I watch a Leafs playoff game, I go, where is Mitch Marner? This team feels so close that if they don't win, if they don't get back into this series, if they don't win this series, it's over. It doesn't look like they're going to win this series either, because Boston's just not playing all that well and winning. They are taking their opportunities and making the absolute most of them. Toronto is just hucking everything at the side of the barn, and they're getting a bounce here, maybe a bounce there. If Toronto doesn't come out house of fire, hair on fire, burning it down at TD Garden in Game 5, if they show up like they did in Game 7 against Montreal in 2021, you cannot run it back. At that point, you cannot run it back. I don't even think you should run it back anymore. I thought they should have fired everyone after 2021 and definitely after 2022. This isn't an acceptable thing anymore. And here's the thing is, I love this. I hate this because it means I'm cheering for the Bruins in this series, but this is a group that does not know how to win in the playoffs. Nothing in this series has shown me that they are going to battle through this adversity and make it work. They are infighting. I think Tyler Bertuzzi's been good. I think Max Domi has stepped into that spotlight very well. But overall, this team has been one that just has not shown up for me at all. And I look at this and thought, this is going to be 7 games. It's going to be ugly. Everyone's going to hate it. And then it's just been, Toronto is probably lucky that this wasn't a sweep. And that's saying a lot for a team that was so good in the regular season. Ilya Samsonov, not it. Don't know if Joseph Woll is going to be any better. The defense, not it. I get that Joel Edmondson's underlying numbers here look great. Watch that game and tell me Joel Edmondson had a positive impact, though. I don't think any of the defense, maybe Simon Benoit, which is probably not the name you want to hear. I don't see the big names stepping up for Toronto here. And if they don't come back and win this series, it's over. You pull the plug. This core 4 thing is done. You start looking anew here. What that means overall, I don't know. I'm not Brad Treliving. I'm kind of glad I'm not. But what I am afraid of is him trading William Nylander to Tampa Bay for Tanner Jeannot because he's not a very good general manager. I'm hoping the Canadiens can swoop in on this. And hey, get involved. Is there someone from this team that you think can make the Canadiens better? William Nylander immediately makes the Canadiens better. Mitch Marner, I don't want Mitch Marner here. I think he makes the team better. I also don't think that the issue that comes around him, named Paul Marner, and the drama that ensues with that is worth it. But boy, if you can pick over the corpse of your rival after they failed to win anything in the time when you were rebuilding, you do it. I want to know what our listeners think. How cooked is Toronto? Is Toronto cooked, or are they just kind of cooked? Let me know in the comments. Again, tweet us at .com. Sound off in the comments. Just, don't be rude to your fellow listeners. You can follow me on Twitter at Scott Matla. Laura will be back for tomorrow's episode with me. You can follow her at The Active Stick. Subscribe wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, and beyond. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, folks. We will see you all next time.